Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for July the 2nd. As a courtesy reminder, those of you in the audience, if you have a mobile device, please make sure it's on vibrate or silence. Okay, in front of you, Commissioners, you have the work session agenda. You will notice the second and third pages are changes to the agenda. So at this time, I would accept a motion to approve the work session agenda as amended.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. First up, we have discussion items that will not require action at our regular meeting. And so we will start off with Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools QSCB. So Lee and Mr. Whitkey, I don't know if you want to join them. You can. Mr. Whitkey will be doing hand signals today, and Kelly here.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Whitkey had some surgery, and so he's going to do as little talking as possible. We're going to talk for him, and if he needs to help us out, he'll be here to assist. I'll go over the QSCB funded project status report with you, and if you have any questions, certainly answer those, and then Mr. Conley will go over the project status report for you. The QSCB funded project status report, we modified it a little bit based on a meeting that we had here with your staff. We wanted to provide you with better information that you were getting. Part of the problem was timing on some of the items that you had, so we added a column called requested budget amendments. So the requested budget amendments would be, that column would reflect the items that we are asking for your approval today in your meeting, and it would also reflect the items that we are asking our board for approval to. Often we would not, actually not often, consistently we would not put the items on this report until they were approved, because you had not approved them yet. If you had not approved them, we didn't show them in the balances. So we've included this item to reflect that, or this column to reflect that. We also added bid amount not encumbered. If we bid it but we have not encumbered it, we've not issued the PO because of timing, we wanted to show you that. We also added a column called estimated future expenses. So these are future expenses that we know about that we wanted you to know about. We also added a column called contingency for open projects. If we are unsure about that project, something might come in that we want to hold on to that money because we are unsure about what's going on in that project, we are openly telling you that we've left a contingency there for that project. And then the balance remaining is what we anticipate at the end of the project is going to be there to move from project to project, or whatever needs to be done with that. So then we've also told you at the last column how far along we are in that project. If we're 100% complete, then it makes sense that we can move that money, or you can move that money if you want to. If we're 40% complete, it doesn't really make sense to move that money at that time. So we wanted to give you as much information as we knew at the time. So I'll take any questions that you have about that, and then there was one other footnote that I wanted to give you before we move on.
Commissioners, do you have any questions concerning the spreadsheet?
How do you get up and get the balance remaining?
The balance remaining.
If you go to Culture and Web remodel magnet school program, looks like the 150,000 projection came in $28,000 under bid. So the adjusted price is $121. Paid today is $77,504. Did you subtract $77,504 from the $121 to get the $43,843?
Okay, Culture and Web, which,
One down.
okay. So you take you take the original budget, you make any changes in the budget, so you get to $121,000.
And the $28,000 is because it came in under bid, under projection.
No, the $28,000 is simply because we felt like at the end of the day there was budget that we could move.
Well, okay, let's back up.
For-
Then what did it come in, what did it bid out at?
What did it bid out at?
Yeah.
I don't have that that data available to me at this moment.
So if it bid out greater than 121,347, then that's not an accurate number.
I assume, because it says paid to date, 77,504, that that's what it bid out at.
Okay.
But that's just an assumption that I don't have
Right.
that data right now.
Okay, and that, so actually there could be more money available than the 28,000.
And that's what this report's indicating to you, that there's $43,843 left in that account that, yeah, that can be moved.
And
Because
that's
it's
just
100% complete.
Okay, and that's just subtracting the paid to date from the adjusted project budget.
Exactly.
Now, paid to date, does that mean that it's done, completed, and paid in full?
That the last column says
The 100%.
project complete. It says
Okay.
100%, so that would indicate yes.
Okay.
And there's nothing encumbered. You say there's a column that says amount encumbered, and it says 0. If there was something encumbered but it wasn't paid, then there would be an amount in that column.
When you say amount encumbered, is that what still is left? What do y'all define amount encumbered as?
It means that we've obligated something, but we haven't paid it. We have an obligation to a vendor,
Okay.
but we haven't paid it yet.
Does that mean the bid was actually $77,000 if you had a balance remaining and it's 100% complete?
It doesn't mean the bid was that amount. It means the expense for that project was $77,504. The bid could have been $72,000, and we could have paid $5,000 for some other design fees.
But I mean, the bid was not actually $121,000.
You're exactly correct.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, this I asked before the meeting started, which may help a little bit to address what you were asking. The question I had was the column for contingency for open projects and balance remaining. That is somewhere, that it's not a set in stone number, but it is an approximation of the amount of funds that the Board of Education will have to reallocate to some of the projects that they currently show on the next page as postponed projects. So when I add those two columns up, it's almost $800,000. So it appears to me that the Board of Education will have some funds that they've been very conservative with to address some of the other projects that they haven't done yet. The other question I asked is on the postponed project, first of all, one that's not listed is the ball fields at Northwest, and those are still listed on the first page. I think those should probably be moved. The way I read it, to postpone projects, that's for them to decide. But also I asked if you will relay this back, please, to Dr. Shepherd on the postponed projects. It would be helpful to me to be able to see how the Board of Education prioritizes that list.
Okay.
Presuming that you do have somewhere $800,000 that you are going to be able to reallocate, what order are they looking at, you know, what's their priority list for those? Not that it's an agreement that that's exactly what you're going to do, because, you know, you might not have quite enough money to do it in that exact order, but I'm curious what the Board of Education's priority list is for those.
You're right, yeah, you're right, that Northwest, the athletic fields needs to be dropped down to the postponed list, and on the next document you get, it will be.
And there may be others on there. That just happened to be one I know that there was a lot of discussion about
Okay.
in your meetings that I heard, so.
Yeah.
Those were the questions that I had.
Well, it shows that $540,000 change in budget on the Northwest field. Wasn't that $540,000 added to the gymnasium?
Yes, and if you, yes.
Yes.
It was, and if you'll see right below that, there's an increase of $1,127,826. That's part of that $540,000.
Okay.
Okay, no other questions on this spreadsheet? Okay,
And I
Mr.
just-
Connolly, you had?
Oh, I'm sorry,
or
can I
don't
just,
know.
I had one other little small thing that I wanted to call your attention to. On Thursday, we received a bid in for the switches for Weinkauf Elementary. That's on the second page of this document. Yes, right there. And so we said in this document, because it was prepared about 2 weeks ago, and we said our estimated future expenses were $116,541, so that would have left the balance at 0. That bid came in higher than expected. We are at this point, we are $31,500 over budget if we accept that bid. So what we see as a problem now is that we do not have enough money in that account. So we're going to need to look for additional funds. Now, being able to read this document, we've looked and we think that we need to make a suggestion to take those dollars from the J and Freeze technology upgrades. There's $37,254 in that account, and it looks reasonable to us to make that recommendation to you guys and to our board also today. What we have come across in several of these projects is timing, in that we didn't know this 2 weeks ago. And if we wait for your next board meeting and our next board meeting, we are into school starting. So we have a problem that we would like help with. So your suggestion or a head nod, if we could get some ideas of what you want to do going forward, if it's okay, if this is a good idea, a good suggestion to move it from technology from that school to this school, we could move forward with this and not have to delay the work.
So if I hear you correctly, on our agenda 4.5, we already have on the agenda to make 2 other reallocations. So presuming that the Board of Education approves it next week at your meeting.
Today
at your meeting, sorry. Then you want us to just add that into 4.5 so that we have 3 items under 4.5.
That would be perfect.
That's the way I understand it? Okay, is that okay with everybody? And we'll approve it in 2 weeks, so they'll have to make the motion tonight to actually do that, but we can add that into 4.5 and amend the agenda with that item.
Was there more than one bidder on that project?
Yes, there were. There were 5 to 6 bidders.
And that's the low, 155,000 is the low bid.
Yes.
Was it the same bidder for Central Cabarrus and Concord High School?
For the wireless,
Yes, sir. Switchers, servers, switches, wireless, wiring.
as I recall, the low bid for the cabling was iConnect, and the for the equipment was Advanced Digital. I believe they're the same bidders.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. I hope you're feeling better, Mr. Witt. I don't know if, is there anything that you've changed on this page, Mr. Conley?
The only thing we did is we pulled down the postponed projects, where we had them as canceled projects, and we're I think, yeah, those are relabeled, just due to the fact that we changed some of the percentages on those because we wanted to make sure that I'll give you an example. J.N. Freeze Middle School, that project, there's some additional roofing that we want to complete on that, so we kept that open as partially complete. So we made changes on that. The other thing, I just wanted to summarize where we are. We've got a lot of work going on this summer. There are 11 projects in construction right now. We've got 2 pending projects that are coming up. The makeup of the projects in total, there are 5 HVAC projects that are under construction right now, 4 architectural projects. We have 2 technology projects that are underway, and then we've got 2 electrical projects that are pending. And the projects are on schedule, so we're looking good there. But it's a tight summer schedule. So.
Under completed projects, you have an acronym, Big C, little o, Big C. Is that certificate of completion, or?
That's correct, certificate of completion, which we're required to send to DPI at the completion of the project.
Okay.
So.
I was just guessing that's what it was.
Yeah, that's good.
I knew it wasn't certificate of occupancy, so that's where I was having some trouble.
Yeah.
Any questions on the milestone report? Okay. Thank you very much. Have you heard from Kannapolis at all? Okay. if we can ask them if they can come in 2 weeks to give an update, that might be helpful. Okay, next up, we have the Old Bethel School property item. And Jonathan Marshall, are you going to talk about that?
I sure will. You had instructed us to, I guess, solicit bids on that and to follow an upset bid process. Of course, our first initial advertisement was to solicit that first bid, and we received 2 by the deadline on Friday. Both those bids were for $10,000 from Woodson University and C Voltaics. So on the 16th, by the advertisement, you'll be asked to accept one of those bids, and if you choose to, then you'll need to differentiate, of course, between the two. There is nothing in the statute that required, really gives you guidance. It'll be up to the board how you want to decide between those two. But that will start, by your instructions, the upset bid process. Once you accept one, we will then advertise for upset bids, and certainly the one that was not accepted would then have the opportunity to upset that. Each time we get an upset bid, we can restart the process until we reach a point where we go 10 days of advertised without having an additional bid.
I believe we needed a resolution too.
Yeah.
We need a resolution to pick which of the two, or what kind of, are you saying the resolution once we have selected one?
Identifying the upset bid process,
Yeah.
there are 2 methods.
There are, so we could, each time there's an upset bid, we could bring it back to you and then you would accept it and we'd restart, or you could allow us to, each time there's an upset bid, then to re-advertise and start that process back, which would be much quicker and get it back to you.
Okay, Commissioners, do you have comments or questions, I guess, about the upset bid process? Do you have a preference? Do you want it to come to us each time, or do you want it to go through staff so that every 10 days, if we needed it, could keep proceeding?
I think we should make a decision on the 16th as to which bid, and then after that, it can just stay with staff until a final bid has been completed, and then we approve the final bid.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, but, just be notified. I guess we'll notify us every time somebody puts another bid in, so.
Okay. Commissioner Burridge?
Fine with me.
I agree.
Okay, good. Okay, so, okay, so we have the 2 bids. Is there any, other than the 2 bids, is there any policy or any guidance as far as if they're both identical? Is there any procedure in place, or it's just a matter of we look at the bids and decide?
You can look at the bids, but you can also look at the project. Since it's even bids, then you can look at the project and see which one you think is more beneficial.
Okay.
If that's, you can use that as one of your criteria.
Have they provided the project itself for their plans with their bids? Okay. Is that going to be posted where we can get to it?
That's is that the addition to the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh.
And the reason I said that is that when I tried to look at it, I think the server was down today, and I couldn't pull up all the documents later this afternoon for at least a short period of time. So I didn't have a chance to look at the 2 bids. So what we need to do is look at the bids, look at all the documents between now and our next meeting so that we can have a discussion concerning both bids, pick a bid, select a bid that we're going to go forward with, and then start the upset bid process.
Old Bethel's, Woodson's bid is on page 255, and the other bid follows that one.
Okay.
Won't Woodson, they'll be tax exempt, right?
I believe some of them probably will. Not knowing if they're going to use the entire building or lease some of it out, then we would have to wait and see what their final plan is.
Now, the other one asked for a, 24-month period without taxing? I read it in there a while ago.
They did in their bid, and that would be,
You can't do that.
it's
can
not
you?
something we're able to do.
I didn't think you could.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Okay, next we'll move to section 4, discussion items for action at the July 16th meeting. First up, we have the EDC grant request and public hearing, and As you will recall, at our last meeting, we agreed to suspend our rules for this meeting in order to address that. So at this time, I would take a motion to suspend the rules concerning item 4.1. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Mr. Cox or Mr. McDaniels or both? Mr. McDaniels?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate you being so flexible with your schedule. I wanted to walk you through the history of Corning this year, as well as give you an update on where we stand with their second possible expansion. If you remember in April, the board voted and approved a grant for a $50 million expansion at their facility. They have the potential of a new expansion in addition to the $50 million. Back in June, we had a public hearing scheduled for a $32 million investment. We did find out that their potential investment had grown to $69 million. So as opposed to having another meeting, as well as a potential third meeting and vote, we decided to hold off and go through the normal 10-day notification process, and that's why we're in front of you today. But the project is a $69 million potential expansion at their facility in Midland. There are new jobs expected. We don't have that exact number, and the reason behind that is they don't know where they're going to locate the facility. So if it locates in Midland, the job number could be different than another facility. We do know those wages are going to be higher than our average manufacturing wage. So these are good jobs, the kind of jobs that are important to a community. Our EDC board approved this expansion in June, and the project is moving quickly, and they hope to make a decision soon. That's why we're here at the work session as opposed to a normal meeting. You can see in front of you the breakdown. We did adjust the tax rate to reflect the new fiscal year tax rate of 70 cents as opposed to 63 cents. As you can see in year one, the company would pay taxes, $483,000. A grant would be issued if they meet all the qualifications of $410,000. The county still nets $72,000. In year two, you can see the depreciation. We use a standard 10%. Since this is personal property, we don't know what that exact depreciation schedule will be because we don't know what the equipment will be. But this is the best guess, best estimate that we can use. You'll see in year three, the depreciation continues, and then into year four. In year four, the grant would expire. So Corning would continue to pay taxes as they've done in the previous 3 years, but simply there would be no grant. And you can see the net taxes grant, and then the net revenue, even with the grants, is close to $200,000. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Okay. At this time, we need to hold a public hearing, so let's do that first, and then if we have any questions, we'll come right back to you, okay? So I will open the public hearing for EDC, Economic Development Grant Request for Corning. Is there anyone here to speak for or against the grant request? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions that any of you have or comments?
Ryan, do you know when was the original? Do you have handy what the original grant dates were when they originally had their original one? Because they moved here, I believe, 97.
I believe it's 1999 was the original.
Okay, so there's 3 years of the original grant they had.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I just have comments, and certainly I know everyone's aware of my opinions on tax incentives, but I certainly won't be voting for this tax incentive, and that's, they've already received one tax incentive earlier this year, and I can't imagine giving another tax incentive. And just recently with the last budget vote, we had to increase the tax rate, and now we're choosing which companies can get a tax refund. And I just certainly do not think that's right, and I can't support it.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'd just like to say I think it's unfair taxation to everybody else in the county. I can't support it. I don't think it's fair to those that pay their taxes every year to give somebody 85% of theirs back that's been here for the last, 10 years? And it just don't seem like a good policy to me, so I can't vote for it.
Any other comments?
I mean, I'm going to certainly vote for it. I think that what happens is we've talked about lowering the tax structure for corporations to encourage them to grow and to expand and to add new jobs. This is one way that we can do that. And, you know, my firm's been here since 1896. We have yet to receive a tax incentive, but I tell you this is we need to get our unemployed back to work, and we're not going to do it if we don't look at ways to provide opportunities for companies to expand. This is $69 million, and it will, over a 4-year period, it will bring in $352,000 to the county, net taxes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, at this time,
But
sorry.
if you hadn't have done it, it would have brought in $1,308,000.
Well, I disagree with you there, Commissioner Burge, because they will not come here but for this grant being approved. That is the whole thing. If they do not receive this, they will not come here, and we will have lost a minimum of $352,107 or up to $1.1 million, and future expansions that may occur, or $352,000 every year, or roughly that amount going forward, depending on the depreciation amount. So they would not come here but for this grant.
That's an opinion. That's not necessarily true.
Well, it is true, because
based
the
on
only
our
way they can receive it
ordinance.
is they would not come here but for this grant. So by contract and by law, they would not be able to receive this grant unless they would not come to Cabarrus County but for this grant. So that is in fact the truth, and that is in fact the only way they'll come here is if they receive this grant, because there is competition elsewhere, and it happens in South Carolina, and it happens in our adjoining states. And the question is, are we going to sit around and stick our head in the sand, or do something about it? And this is one way to do something about it, to get people back to work.
Well, let's be fair, then go back and give everybody in the county 85% of taxes back for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, you know, and I've said this from being on the board, is I understand the thought process of the tax incentives. I understand, you know, the arguments behind that. The problem I have is that, you know, we receive this additional tax revenue, and we say that, you know, we're going to be netting this extra tax revenue for a number of years. Well, you know, we don't ever see direct benefits from that. One thing I would like to see is for that money to be put aside, and we could actually decide where, you know, see what extra additional revenues we're going to be receiving over the time, and decide to use that money in a certain way. Unfortunately, it goes all incorporated into our budget, and then it just gets spent, you know, wherever. But I would like to see direct benefits from that.
One thing I would add, and I go back several years, and I know that there's just a basic philosophical difference, and it's a philosophical difference among conservatives about the whole idea of incentives. And you know, I was in a meeting several years ago where somebody said that we ought to have a federal law that outlaws the giving of tax incentives. And the point was brought up that there's a certain company that went to Indonesia. Indonesian government gave them their land for free. They basically gave them the land, also they were not required to pay any taxes for 40 years, and they were told that the day you show up, the day the plant opens, the plant will be fully staffed. If you have any problem with any employee, you call this number, and that employee will not be back. And they did the hiring for them, everything. And there's no way we can compete. The problem is it's unilaterally disarming. Yeah, we could quit giving incentives, but, you know, one of the things we talked about, Commissioner Mason, we talked about the tax rate. You know, yeah, if you look at it from that angle, yes, we did just increase the tax rate, and here we're talking about doing a tax rebate or tax incentive for a business. But one of the reasons where taxes went to 70 cents is because, if you think about it just a moment, we have very little commercial investment in Cabarrus County, and it's so far out of balance that if we don't get And that's the whole thing that this road program has been about, is getting that investment. I'm looking not at the rebates, but I'm looking at the $50 million worth of assessed value at year 4. And that's, and I'm not going to go into math right now, but you think about how many $200,000 homes you would have to build to make up for that $50 million in investment. And the thing about the homes, for every home you build, that you don't get most of that revenue back to be used for schools, to be used for parks, because a lot of it's going, you're also having the demand of increased school enrollment, increased demand on services because of the increased population. So if it means balancing our tax base and bring that more into balance, then I'm willing to invest this an investment of the first 3 years. And I know that, like I say, it's good people disagree on this because it's all over the country. But the problem is, you unilaterally disarm, then all we're saying is that we just don't care about the community, and we're just going to let it just fall apart just because we don't want to be on that side of the conservatives.
It's not about we're going to let this fall apart. As a business owner, you make a business decision whether to relocate a business, whether to expand your business based upon the area, based upon the location, based upon the community, the environment of that county or city, based upon their school system, the safety, things of that nature, location to 85 or, whatever it may be. And as a business owner, like I've said before, I've realized what kind of tax incentive I would get based upon my business value, and that is a drop in a bucket to a business. Now, $1.1 million is a lot of money to me, but to a corporation that's multi-millions of dollars, that is not enough to make a business decision. Anyone who makes a business decision on that small amount of money, they're not much of a businessman. So it's not enticing a company. Yes, it's an addition to them, but it's not what is going to be pouring businesses in.
Well, I disagree with you on that, Commissioner Meismer, because in regards to your direct benefits, I believe Madam Chair has a sheet that shows the direct benefits that we've received, and she talked about it sometime in the last 2 to 3 months, I know, about the benefits that Cabarrus County received. In regards to schools, environment, tax structure, you look at that, and if you want to make a comparison to Mecklenburg County, we have a lower tax rate, we got a better school system, we got a better environment, but look at Chiquita, look at Electrolux, look at the companies that have gone to Mecklenburg County. So it's not just education, it's not just tax rate, there's other things they look at. This is a way to do it, and unfortunately, well, I know this, is that out of the 5 of us, I believe that I'm the only person, Commissioner Burridge may pay taxes on his business, but I know I pay taxes at my business, and excluding Commissioner Burridge, I don't know, but nobody else pays taxes on their business that sits on this board.
Well, I used to pay taxes on it.
Used to.
Used to, then I
Well,
sold it.
and I-
The only comment I want to make is I was going to reference the spreadsheet, and I know you and I had that conversation at that particular meeting, and I think Commissioner Burge was the one that said, well, that's only 10 cents, but it's 10 cents. The tax rate is lowered as a result of the investment that has come into the county. So we're at 70 cents, not 80 cents, and that would have been the case since we've been doing economic developments. On average, on an annual basis, it's been about 10 cents of the tax rate that the investments, once they come off after the 3rd year, those continue to pay taxes, and those have greatly impacted county government and what we are able to do in Cabarrus County. Any other
Yes, the
questions,
list-
comments?
And I understand, the list of businesses or list of investment that you presented to the board, I guess a few meetings ago. Those are companies that receive the tax incentives, but it's not fair to say that we would not have had any of that investment if they didn't receive the tax incentive. That's
And-
not the fact, that's just
Well-
opinion.
Well-
And we certainly could have had much of that investment without them receiving tax
Okay,
incentives.
and I would say that that's most definitely opinion, because the document they signed says that they would not be coming here and doing the investment without the incentives. And I have no way, I wasn't on the board for the majority of those, so I have no way of debating that with anybody that's here that we have given grants to in the past. So, they sign an agreement, and it's a legal document that states that is the reason, that is what is the tipping of the scale if you will, to bring them here. So, any other comments, questions?
Well,
I mean,
my vote has nothing to do with Corning. I think they're a good company. I don't blame them for asking for the tax incentives. To me, it's still unfair taxation to the rest of the taxpayers in Cabarrus County. And any other way you look at it, I can't see it any other way. And, so that's the reason I can't vote for it.
I see one thing though, and I'm just making this point, I guess, Madam Chair, at that time, I think there's no way we're ever going to convince each other up here that we're to go the other direction. But a couple points to make, and I think that look at it as I had a chance this weekend to go through Greenville, South Carolina, and of course I've traveled pretty much all over the Carolinas the last 13 years, seeing different businesses. And I remember back in the late 90s when I first started doing this work, there were I had several textile companies, textile mills that I've had as customers. I watched them over about a 2 or 3 year period go away completely. And what you ended up with then was communities that could make a decision about which way they wanted to go. Do they want to reinvest, invest public dollars if needed to, in order to get that economy going again? And I can tell you that Greenville, South Carolina was, to me, in the late 90s, was about as dead as they could be. And now you drive, and there's one thing, and I'm not saying, and Corning's a great company, but it's not BMW, I can grant you that. But I can guarantee you that the investment, and I'm sure, I don't know what incentives were given, but I'm sure the public investment, whatever it was given and whatever partnership was worked out to bring BMW to Greenville, completely changed and turned that economy 180 degrees. Where the old J.P. Stevens plant is at on I-85 is now, has been changed into completely a new mixed-use development. You've got a research campus in Greenville, South Carolina. That whole community has been completely transformed. In fact, I was telling my son that that is the happening place in the Southeast, is Greenville, South Carolina. And the reason is because, yeah, they could have done like other towns that I've seen where they just said, okay, the mill closed, we're dead, we're not going to do any investment, we're just going to sit back and, if people want to come here, they'll come. Well, they don't. And that's unfortunately the game we're playing. And like I say, I'm not enamored myself with the fact with tax incentives, but it is what has developed over the years as a way to attract business. And we've got a strong business here that could have very easily have mothballed this plant, 10 years ago when they closed down because the market dropped, but they didn't. They kept it going, and then they have decided to give it another chance. And with a new, the market changing again, they've given a new chance, new investment, and it's resurrected this in a part of the county that needs the investment and needs to have that vitality that the Midland community needs. So anyway, that was all I'm going to say about it.
okay, if there are no other comments, then at this time I would entertain a motion concerning the economic development grant for Corning as it's presented.
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve the economic development grant of the ad valorem taxes on the increase in personal property taxes for Corning. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 3-2. Okay, next we have 4.2. Happy to recognize Rick Burleson from Mount Pleasant Council.
Great state of Mount Pleasant.
From the great state of Mount Pleasant, to talk to us about Central Cog and their Connect Our Future Vibrant Communities in a Robust Region.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Pleased to be here this afternoon. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I'm Rick Burleson. I am Mayor Pro Tem from the town of Mount Pleasant on their board. I'm also the Cabarrus County representative for cities and towns on the Central Carolina Council of Government Executive Board. And those towns are Kannapolis, Mount Pleasant, and Midland that are members of that board. Does Cabarrus County have any challenges? I'm guessing not. Next slide, please. Cabarrus County is just like the rest of us. We have to plan for growth within the region. This region that we're talking about is 2.4 million people. In 20 years, that's projected to increase by another 50%. In 40 years, that's projected to double to almost 5 million people in our region. we're going to have to figure out ways to meet infrastructure needs, and we're going to have to do it while we're controlling the cost of government. We have unemployment. We need jobs and housing that attracts and retains young people. We have difficulty attracting businesses, sometimes with incentives, sometimes not. We need worker training. We're going to have limited water. And we have a need for tools for decision making, and we have those at our own levels, but not at a regional level. We are challenged to build a vibrant community for our children and grandchildren. What if we don't do anything? What if we don't plan to make this a sustainable region? We'll have uncontrolled growth, more congestion, we'll lose our open space and our agricultural land. Cost of government's going to go up. We will miss opportunities to work together to work on mutual problems. We'll miss opportunities for economic growth and jobs and bringing in residents and bringing them in where we want them to be. We won't develop any new strategies to help address our infrastructure needs. Our water supply and demand will become imbalanced. We won't be able to compete with other regions for businesses and for the federal funding that is limited and becoming even more limited. Bottom line, we don't become the best communities or region that we can be. So what is working together to connect our future? It's, as a region, working together to grow jobs, the economy, improve our quality of life, and control the cost of government. We're looking for communities, counties, businesses, educators, and others to come together across our borders. This vision is funded by a $4.9 million HUD Sustainable Communities grant with a $3 million in-kind match. It's a 3-year process. Next slide, please. And we're looking to create a framework. We're going to involve our communities through public engagement. We're going to look for folks like you to identify needs, folks like the people in our community to help us identify needs. We're going to look at existing plans and strategies like land use plans, future land use plans, housing strategies, et cetera. We're going to engage local governments, like I said, public and private partners. We're looking for school boards. We're looking for economic development commissions. We're looking for local residents across this area. I don't remember if Cabarrus County approved the Connect Vision in 2008. I know Town of Mount Pleasant did. Next slide, please. That vision was to build a strong, diverse economy, increase collaboration among jurisdictions, sustainable, well-managed growth, a safe and healthy environment, quality educational opportunities, and enhanced social equity through community leadership and volunteerism. The region we're looking at is 10 counties in North Carolina and 4 in South Carolina. There's over 100 municipalities in this region. And like I said, the current population is 2.43 million, with 2 million of those being in North Carolina. Next slide, please. How would this vision support economic growth and jobs? We're looking to develop strategies that businesses put into their community planning. We're looking to remove barriers for business growth. We're looking to train workers based on and targeting the industries that we're looking for. We're looking for growth around new and revitalized job centers and revitalizing old and commercial and industrial sites. We're looking for developing a baseline and then a preferred scenario for the future to help us address growth and shared challenges. We're going to develop tools and strategies to help address critical issues such as infrastructure, housing, air and water quality, and open space. And we're going to develop an ongoing system to help us coordinate and collaborate on shared problems. We've looked at half a dozen or so other regions that have done efforts like this and have recognized significant savings. Kansas City, $2.5 billion in infrastructure. Salt Lake City, $3.5 billion in infrastructure. Lots of cities have revitalized their urban areas and improved their housing. Next slide, please. So how's this work? Connect Our Future is based on a consortium of more than 100 public, private, and nonprofit organization members that are going to help guide the process and work on topical work groups. We're going to engage the public. There are going to be planned 80 public engagement sessions over the next 3 years and have folks bring input into this process. Studies and data collection, and we will be asking staffs to help us provide data to come up with a baseline and then help us work on a consensus for a preferred plan. So what would we be asking a consortium member to do? Share data on your existing stuff. Thank you. Your existing land use, transportation, utility plans. We'd be asking you to appoint representatives to come to meetings, and we'll probably be asking for an elected official and an alternate, and a staff and an alternate. We'd be asking those folks and you folks to help us shape the future framework with tools and tell us your challenges and participate in the public engagement and help us get members of the community to participate in public engagement. We're not asking for any money. The HUD grant provides the $4.9 million. The in-kind matches provide things like staffing assistance, meeting facilities, etc. The process is really just getting started with data collection, public engagement, the rest of this summer, and then in the fall we'll have more public engagement, starting to pull together measures of what's important, and in 2013 and 14 evaluate the alternatives, create a preferred scenario, and then finalize and create next steps. We're asking you to join a consortium. We want you to be involved. We want you to participate. We need your help if we're going to make this successful. Next slide, please. This is the meeting where I'm asking you to consider joining the consortium. We're going to ask you to participate in engagement. There's some contact information there from the Central Iowa Council of Government for more information. But I want to say, did any of you make it out to the Town of Mount Pleasant Independence Day celebration? I know Ms. Poole was there, Mike was there, Mr. Beasley was there, thank you. I love Mount Pleasant. I think it's a great place. And I would like to think that Mount Pleasant provided everything that I need. We got great schools, we got great people, we got a lovely community. But it doesn't. I rely on this region for a lot of the things I need. My employer's not in Mount Pleasant. I have a job somewhere else. If I want to go to the movies, I have to go out of Mount Pleasant. If I want to ride a train, if I need to go somewhere on a train, I have to leave Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is great, but it cannot provide the quality of life that me and my family would like. We are reliant on the entire region, Cabarrus County. I'm a Panthers fan. We have a football team in Charlotte. We love water sports. We are relying on this region, and it has to be sustainable, and this is an effort to do that. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions? I do believe that we probably did approve that in 2008. We were members of COG at that time, so we should have approved that when you asked that question. I'm pretty certain
And you
of
do
that.
not have to be a member of COG to be a member of the consortium, obviously.
Questions?
I'm I'm trying to figure out, it's $7.9 million that's going to be spent over 3 years.
That is correct.
But there's no vision for what it's going to be spent on other than a regional framework to ensure rapid growth continues to occurs in ways to promote economic and job growth, protect quality of life, and avoid unnecessary spending. That's extremely vague.
Yes, it is, Mr.
How does that
White.
help Cabarrus County? And what I'm saying is, Harrisburg has been very good to do a land use plan. Concord has been awesome in doing a land use plan. We ask and we ask and we ask, and we hear crickets chirping in regards to Kannapolis to do a land use plan with the county, and that's growth. You know, if one of our cities in our county won't work with us to do a land use plan, why would we participate in a consortium in that regards?
That's a good question, Mr. White. I can give you some details on where some of that money is going to be spent, some of the things that are going to take place. As I said, there will be public engagement forums throughout the 14 counties, asking folks what their needs and their priorities are. There will be technical studies looking at the economy, the housing, air quality, energy, food and agriculture. I know there's one of those planned very soon, and public health. There will be data collection and analysis, compiling the local land use plans and transportation maps into a regional database, modeling and mapping software to project current land use trends into the future, development of multiple regional growth scenarios based on local input and feedback, and analysis of how those scenarios impact the issues deemed important to local governments. There will be a regional framework document and toolkit and establishment of action items and identification of grant opportunities for implementation and continuous improvements. There will be grant administration, public meeting logistics facilitation, and process communications.
Add to that, on the staff level, we've already been working with COG on several of these meetings, and this plan here that they're coming up with is very high elevation. We're also been talking about how we would fit in there and be more specific to Cabarrus County, and that's what Mr. Marshall and I are working along with Ms. Morris with the University of Chapel Hill, and we'll be coming to you with a more specific plan there. But a lot of the information that's going to be gathered here will benefit us locally as well. And we are now, and Concord and Kannapolis is part of that process of staff level working with COG. And then we're also, again, working on area plans now, more specific with both Kannapolis and Concord. So we are moving in the right direction. So,
well, you know, what concerns me in the past, and I don't know if it's changed or not, but when we were part of COG and we had something similar to this, we voiced our concerns and COG shut us down. COG didn't want to hear it. COG said that that's not their concern. And so that I don't know if that's changed. It's not going to cost us anything, and we certainly should be part of something, but I just don't want to waste our staff's time when, if there is an issue raised, is COG going to do the same thing? Say, whoa, hey, that's not our issue, and we're not going to worry about that. You know, we got the big elephant in the room, and they're the ones that tell us what we're going to do and how we're going to do things and how it's going to be looking. How are we going to get y'all's residents into Mecklenburg County and not worry about the outerlying counties?
And I understand your concern, Mr. White, and coming from Mount Pleasant, those were some of the first questions I had. You know, we are a very little fish in a very large pond. Is my voice going to be heard? And I can't say that I've seen it, but I've been told that yes, it will, and it will be equitable.
Well, and that is very frustrating from, I can understand it being frustrating from your position. And I'm not saying we don't listen, but, you know, I'm concerned about spending $7.9 million over 3 years, and there's a lot of fluff there. And that 4.9 is coming from housing and urban development, which, you know, we know where that money's coming from.
Coming from China. That's one thing that bothers me about the whole thing. The $4.9 million gonna be borrowed. In time our great-grandchildren get it paid back, it's gonna cost $15 million, and they're not gonna get any benefit from this. I think the whole thing's a bad idea as far as I'm concerned. If you go over to page 53 and you see who's behind the whole thing, you got HUD, you got transportation, and you got the, I don't forgot what they were now. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Anything they got anything to do with, I don't want nothing to do with.
I agree with you, Commissioner Burge, and the only thing that I'm trying to, that is having a tough thing to say no is how else do we get money back that's leaving this county? And, you know, I just don't, I don't know how to get that money back and at least try and use it to the benefit of Cabarrus County, so.
This is not gonna get it back.
Well, we get $4.9 million, but some portion of $4.9 million back, so that.
Yeah, but look what it's gonna cost us in the long run. Look what it's gonna cost our grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
I understand that, Commissioner Burge, and I'm trying to figure out is if it is not spent in this region, it's going to be spent in some.
Well, it's going to be spent in this region whether Cabarrus County gets entered or not.
Well, then we can either try to have our voice heard or not be part of the process. But it's frustrating that I see is that we've been trying throughout the county to work with different cities on land use planning, and we get rebuffed. And this right here is going to potentially talk about land use planning.
And we wind up picking up the tab for the school children. They wind up building houses in all the cities, outside or in the city limits.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one and a little different tack, and I hear what y'all are saying. I think the challenge is going to be in this whole thing, having traveled throughout this area extensively, is that how do you convince folks in eastern Anson County that they have something in common with the folks in western Union County, South Carolina, with the folks that are in northern Iredell County, with the folks that are in northwest Cleveland County? When a lot of those folks, you know, and I'm not being critical, I'm just saying that, is that a lot of the COGS boundaries are just pretty much administrative boundaries that somebody sat down in an office and drew a boundary. And because Union County, South Carolina, I think economically is more connected to Spartanburg and Gaffney, South Carolina, and even Columbia than they are to Charlotte. And but they're put into our region, you know, and as part of this. And I know it's, you know, probably, and I think the thing that holds together is Mecklenburg in Charlotte, downtown Charlotte. That's I think it's always been some of the concerns. I guess something that's got to be overcome. The challenge got to be overcome is that this doesn't just become a thing that how do we build up Central Charlotte so that everybody will come to Central Charlotte, and that's the region is Central Charlotte, and that's it. But
to answer your question, Commissioner Caruth, about how do you convince somebody in Anson County that they have something in common with Iredell, I think if you look at the issues we all face, it's jobs, it's housing, it's where to put residential. Those are common. You might not realize that in Anson County and Iredell County, but they are.
well, I think that one of the things, our COG here is different than some other COGs throughout the state. And you've got a very large metropolitan area in the middle of it, because I know there's other COGs that they have a totally different flavor of what they do. And you know, I know a couple COGs down the eastern part of the state, they actually do several services that the cities and the counties can't afford to do by themselves. They pool together at the COG level, and the COG performs services. They do some of that here, but I think that we've always had to, I think that always has been the challenge, is how do you do regional planning? Because at one time when I was a delegate on the COG board, I know that there were challenges then about how do you convince all these individual municipalities and counties that, because everybody was thinking the same thing. We're basically doing a plan for Charlotte that where Charlotte controls the region, and everybody's kind of scared to go regional because of that very reason.
Understood.
But I think that's a challenge that's got to be overcome to make it successful.
Well, until the outer-lying counties realize there's more representatives from the outer part of Mecklenburg County than the inner part of Mecklenburg County, nothing's going to get done. And I thought it was interesting, the Anson County, I think, has closed down their Economic Development Corporation. They got nobody down there outside that I can tell is marketing their county. I guess they got.
That's a very distressed
Yes,
county.
it is.
Yes.
Before we left, or at the time when the previous Board of Commissioners voted to leave the membership for COG, I was the representative. My point on this is I'm going to rely on the county manager saying that we can benefit by sharing information. It's not costing us anything. And I think that we need to take a regional approach, at least with getting information. If we can get information that we can use to our benefit at no cost, then it would seem to me that we would participate. This is on the agenda for us in 2 weeks. It is not a decision to be made tonight. We would need to make a decision as to an elected representative and an alternate. I asked Mr. Burleson if he knew when they would be meeting, and at this time he is not certain. So hopefully he can find that information prior to our meeting in 2 weeks. All of us have full-time jobs and different schedules, so depending on when they would meet may determine who the representative could be and who the alternate could be. And
I think from
I would
staff it ought to
suggest
be.
that it's not Mr. Caruth.
No. I think from staff, it ought to be Jonathan or somebody
Jonathan or
that
Susie
he can
combined.
identify would be Jonathan, Susie, somebody that.
And I've already been participating in some of this, as Mr. Downs has said. We're working on our area plans with really all the cities at this point in Cabarrus County. We've been talking about a larger project that would involve all the cities together that we could do with UNC Chapel Hill, and then along with that, we've been talking with the Central Lina staff who are working with Connect and how that fits in the larger vision. So we'd still work on our specific plans here, a larger vision for Cabarrus County, and then how it fits in regionally. And I've been the one working with them, and then of course both Kelly Sifford and Susie Morris have also. So I think between the three of us, we'd be happy to provide the staff liaison.
And depending on the time, I don't mind being either the elected rep or the alternate for this group. As far as
And
that goes, it just depends on what time they're meeting.
I will try to get those meeting times or
And I don't know,
projected
is
meeting
there
times.
anyone else that would be interested in either doing it or being an alternate?
I'd say let's see the date and we know what our
Okay.
schedules are.
Hopefully, we'll have that before our next meeting, and then we can make a decision.
There is a meeting on July 26th. It's at 1:30 to 3:30, and staff were already registered for that. And so if there
And I've
aren't any
already-
commissioners able to go, we'll
Right,
communicate
and I've already
that
said,
back.
I can't, I'm out of
Okay.
town that day. If there's anybody else, I don't know if anybody else
I'm out
got
of
the
town.
invite for the 26th. If not, we can make sure everybody gets it at least, in case anybody wants to go to that one. That's the kickoff, isn't it?
That's correct.
We said. Yeah, I'm out of town that day, so I could go to it. But we can get that information to everybody, so thank you very much.
Thank you
for
very
presenting.
much.
Okay, can I ask, if you don't mind, I should have done this earlier, can we skip to 4.5, because we still have school folks here, and then we'll do the other two, and that way they don't have to wait around. They have a meeting tonight that I'm sure they'd like to go and prepare for, so if you guys will come back up for 4.5, Mr. Connolly, Mr. Whitkey, and Ms. Klutz. So we have a request to reallocate funds for now 3 projects, because we already said that we would add the Weinkauf Elementary switches in the amount of $31,500 to be included in these, so.
Thank you. And it is, as we referred to before, in that column on the other report requested for budget amendments, and it is somewhat different in a different format than you have seen in the past, because we do not have a budget thus far. We are operating on a continuing budget resolution, different than you guys, so it just looks a little bit different, but we're requesting that we move these 3 items now, previously 2, and if you have any questions about the specific projects, I'll let Lee or Lynn address those.
Are there any questions?
Is there a reason why under mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering, well, let me back up. I'm assuming by the way it was requested that you're trying to move monies from one type of project to another, to the same type project. You're not trying to move from, well, except for the roof replacement, you're trying to keep it within mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, food services, things of that nature, it seems like.
Well, that's the Concord High School project that you're referring to. We're
Yeah.
moving it within the school, which, if we move it from between schools, we have to go through state approval for that, and this expedites the process. And there's surplus funding in the chiller project, which we can use.
Well, because what I'm trying to figure out is, and I'm looking at, well, the brown header next, okay.
Mhm.
Instead of pulling, I'm concerned about pulling money from a partial roof replacement when roofs leak. I mean, my concern is, are we gonna have to fund that in a little bit later? Is it better to, and what I'm looking at,
Yeah, you're referring to Jay and Freeze.
yes, sir, I am, but what happens is, I'm on page 236, but my 236, if you, there you go. The 16,774 and the 6,600 contingency for open projects. Do you see where I am?
Yes, sir.
That's $23,000. Would it not make sense just to use that $23,000 and keep it in that same category? And that way you keep the $20,000 at J.N. Freeze Middle School?
Those are projects that are not yet completed.
Right, but
Our
I'm looking
concern
at
is-
I'm looking at the contingency for open projects, which earlier we were told is available for other projects. This is another project in the same,
That's in
Could
the
be.
same vein. That's
same
true,
vein, so
but
that,
the concern we have is those projects are not yet complete, and we want to hold those open until they're 100% complete for contingency.
Right, and I just want to clarify, those could be available for projects once
Right.
those are closed, but these are open projects
Okay.
at this point, some of them.
okay. Is there any others, if you even went up to just above it, up here, that is like 90% complete is, I'm just trying to figure out is, do we want to change it out, pull it out of J and Freeze, and then all of a sudden, well, we need now to replace it, so we have to come back and do it another? Is there a way that's a closer project about to be done, that it can be moved and keep y'all from having to come back and ask for another move?
It's a valid question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, there's still, 116,000 left in the roofing project after this is completed?
116,587, yes, sir.
116,000. And we did the original project for about 83.
83,413, yes.
Right. So, there are other roofs that need to be replaced, but we would need to look at the square footage on those, just to see.
I mean, if
that
you're confident,
116
let me change it.
Okay.
If you're confident that you're not going to spend more than 116,000 on J.N. Freeze Middle School, then the $20,000 doesn't matter. I just
Right.
don't want to pull it out and
Right,
then
I
say,
understand.
whoa, wait a second, we need
We
to
gotta
put
go
it back in there.
We got to go back.
You see, that's what I'm trying to figure out is, if you're satisfied you don't need that $20,000, that's fine.
Well, at this point, based on what we did before, I think we're satisfied that that's going to work. Based on what we spent for the original roof.
Okay.
In that same vein, I had a question. It's the same thing you just pointed out. If you look at the Concord High School one, you changed the budget previously, and now you're having to put it back in plus a little bit more. So I don't know why there was a change to begin with, but it's what you're saying. Don't take it out and then put it back in. It should stay where it is to begin with until you have a better idea of what's going on. I have no idea what the details of that particular
And
one
I do
are.
believe that this report is going to help us with that, just putting it out here so that we can all see that. And we didn't have this available to you guys and these guys, and so this will help.
Sort of like the ducks at the fair where they're, the shooting range. You're going across and you're trying to figure out which one to hit.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Just think about playing a giant game
So
of
hopefully
free
we'll
cell.
make better decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any concern of, other than what's been expressed, is there any concern about their request is to reallocate the funds that they have available to them?
I don't, I just wondered with these discussions, is there, before our 16th meeting, if there's a way to look at how you could do that so it would minimize future things and do that, just retool it, and that way, when it comes to us, you kind of looked at those options so that it. 'cause
So
I know
you're
that
meeting today, the Board of Education is meeting
Meeting
tonight.
today.
So I guess the request then,
Just some way to-
Mr.
if you look at
Connolly, if
that.
you could relay that to the Board of Education, or either one of you, that the question is moving funds out and then having to move back in, and the suggestion that Commissioner White has on
Yes.
moving that particular line, and see if that helps. But does anybody have any problem with them moving the funds in order to complete those 3 projects?
My only problem is if you're not going to have enough money to finish off the roof.
Roofing, okay.
I mean,
Very
that is my number one. That is, in this issue.
Has the J. M. Freeze roof been bid? I mean,
No,
do you
the
have it
original,
down?
the
You don't.
original scope project, which was partial replacement is completed. We have not had, the remainder of the roof hasn't been designed at this point, so we haven't bid that project.
Wasn't
Okay,
half
but
that roof done last year?
Pardon?
Wasn't half of that roof done last year?
Yes,
One building.
So, but those portions are complete.
yes.
The one
Okay.
portion.
So at this time, I guess maybe the question that's still out there is to determine if additional portions of that roof
Need replacement.
need replacement, and if you'll go forward. And that's the reason why you have estimated future expenses
Yes.
still there, because you haven't determined if the other portions of the roof actually need to be replaced.
Or
Could that
what the
be?
quantity is if
Or
we
what the
decide to.
quantity. Okay.
Correct.
Last
So-
night would have given a good indication.
Pardon? Yeah, oh,
Last
yeah.
night would have been a good
Yeah.
indication.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that makes sense that you would keep money in there if you're still investigating if you're gonna do the rest of the roof or another portion of the roof. That makes sense to me that you would leave money in there, so. Okay. Anything else? Just kinda wanna give them an idea so that if they leave, they'll have an idea of how we're going. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for moving us up.
I just wish there was some way that you didn't have all the regulations tied to this, so you would not have to continuously come back when you have to. so
Yeah, we
you-
did-
So to change from one school to the other, if you have to go all the way to the state to get the approval.
That's correct.
And the
Timing-
reason for that, which was asked, and the reason for that is that the person who signs that IRS document is sitting right there. And as long as Mrs. Dubois' signature is on something, it has to come back to us. That's the
Well, I
reason
know
why.
that. I mean,
We're the ones that do the borrowing, not
I'm just
the board.
wondering
I know
about
you know
going to the
that.
state level.
Yeah.
to be-
But just to reiterate
Yeah.
for anybody that watches this on TV, the reason is that the county's the one that does the
Right.
borrowing.
Yeah, right.
And Mrs. Dubois is the signature on there. And so until some law changes in North Carolina, that's what we have to do. So
I-
each month, we will continue to,
And I will
Have you
say,
come
though, that
forward.
the state has been very cooperative and very attentive to the changes.
thank you all, appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have Ms. Morris. And I presume that Mr. Marshall may jump in on occasion, I don't know, no? Okay. Planning and Development, proposed text amendment and public hearing that we will need to schedule at our meeting on July the 16th. I read it. She knows I read it because I emailed with her today on a couple areas that I have some knowledge on, so.
Good afternoon. This is a long-term project that we have been working on. We actually started working on this last year around the end of June of 2011. Started working on trying to make our ordinance a little more user-friendly, to update it, as well as to try to address some of the typos that we had in it and inconsistent information. So what you have in front of you this evening is 4 chapters that would be amended. Those chapters would be completely removed and replaced with a new chapter. You also have a new Appendix C, which is trail and trailhead design. Our ordinance currently has a reference to a document that the board never actually adopted back in 2005. Appendix C would replace that document and the reference would be changed. And then we are also there are three different tables in three different chapters. We're combining those tables into one so that it'll be easier for someone to look one reference place to find out what is actually permitted in the different zoning districts. Over the last year, we did form a text amendment committee, so 4 members of the Planning and Zoning Committee looked at all of the text changes first. We did that by email and then also in person meetings. And then once the text amendment committee was good with the proposed changes, we then moved to the Planning and Zoning Commission where they had additional discussions. Some of the text was changed after those discussions. We did decide to wait until the end to bring it all to you as a complete package because some of these chapters, if you've had a chance to look at it, you see that they're tied together in how they're used. So the P&Z made the final decision on May 8th to forward the text amendments to you all for final consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And as Commissioner Poole said, you will need to hold a public hearing.
Okay, any questions? And I'll explain to you some of the conversations that I had today. I think you can, one of them I asked about was a bed and breakfast, because the definition of a bed and breakfast says that it's the bed and the breakfast. And then, but if you travel, sometimes you can go to a B&B and they will offer lunch or dinner in addition to. So if there's one in the county that wants to do that, they would do both the B&B and the restaurant. So they would ask for both considerations, I guess, instead of just the B&B. That's why the definitions are a little bit different. The other thing I asked about was pet grooming, because veterinarians do it, kennels do it, and you can have standalone grooming. So I was trying to make sure that based on the definitions, which are quite lengthy, that by it not being in there, was it a problem? So you would also could be a kennel, a public kennel, and a grooming establishment, or a veterinarian and a kennel and grooming, if that was what you were, which most vets are. So that was some clarifications I was trying to get earlier today.
So out of that, we will have a minor change to the definition for pet shop and pet grooming. And then also, and I don't know if you want to have the discussion about the number of animals for the kennel.
No, you were fine, because I couldn't
Okay.
I didn't see that part. So your
Okay.
25 is fine with me.
Okay, so we will.
The other question I had, I'm sorry, was about grooming is allowed in a house, in a residential area. So if you had a grooming shop in a residential area and you had 5 groomers and, enough to do 40 or 50 dogs at a time, that would not be something that should be in a residential area. And I got it confirmed that you could have 1 groomer other than the owner of the house. So it's limited to at most 2 groomers, and any boarding or anything that would be associated with that would have to be indoors, can't have anything outdoors. And so, again, those were the areas that I know something about, so that's why I was making sure I wouldn't. And we have beauty parlors where you can only have 1 chair, so that's where I was going with the grooming, that you would have 1 grooming table. So anyway, but you were fine, your numbers are fine,
Okay.
that you already had. So. Again, any questions that anybody has? It is quite a lengthy document. Okay. We have this, again, go back. We do need to hold a public hearing at our next meeting, and you would need to advertise for the public hearing. And then we have the text changes. So, so it would be under action anyway because of the public hearing. So if there's no other questions, then thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have 4.4. Kevin Grant's here. And company. Kyle is here.
Good afternoon. The current waste collection and disposal franchise agreement with Republic Services expires on December 31st, 2012. This franchise agreement is twofold. One, the agreement provides Republic Services the exclusive right and franchise to collect solid waste from all residential units in the unincorporated section of Cabarrus County. The other thing this franchise agreement allows Republic Services is the exclusive right and franchise to be the exclusive municipal solid waste management facility for the disposal of all solid waste generated from within the city of Kannapolis, towns of Mount Pleasant and Harrisburg, as well as the unincorporated areas of Cabarrus County. This franchise agreement allows for the agreement to be renewed for one successive period of 5 years. And this renewal of the franchise agreement will also guarantee us space at the Speedway landfill for the next 5 years. Over the past year or so, Republic has reached out to us asking about renewing our agreement. It originally started about looking into expanded curbside recycling, which is what we need to do, especially since Concord and Kannapolis has that. But as the discussions kind of carried on, we also asked for a few more items that we'd like to see if we wanted to renew this contract. And based on these discussions and several emails, both Republic and Cabarrus County have agreed to the following. Concerning residential trash and bulky waste collection, Republic is proposing a charge of $14 a month. That includes all state fees and fuel charges. The existing monthly rate is $14.68, so it'd be a reduction of 68 cents. Also, the amount of bulky waste that residents can put at their curb has been increased from 2 cubic yards to 5 cubic yards per customer per week at no additional charge. Concerning recycling that we discussed, Republic has proposed the expanded recycling with a 96-gallon cart. This would be an every other week service, same as what Kannapolis and Concord now see. The charge to customers would be $3.04, down from the existing $4.23 per month per charge. Recycling revenue, this is also something that Concord and Kannapolis have enjoyed over the past a year now, actually. We asked Republic that we wanted to get something back from the curbside recycling. We get a lot of comments from residents saying, what do we get for recycling? The first thing that we should tell residents is we don't fill up these landfills as soon as possible, but people are always looking for revenue. And so now, and actually this has actually started between us and Republic, that they are now taking the recyclables down to Sunoco, and we get a $10 per ton charge or revenue back to us from Republic, or actually we get paid from Sunoco. An average of 1,700 tons of recyclables have been collected from county residents over the past year, so that would be about a $17,000 revenue coming back to us. And as most people realize that when we go to expanded curbside recycling, the amount of recyclables greatly increase, so we expect to see that revenue increase over the next year if we continue with this. With regard to disposal, like I said, this is important to not only us, but to Kannapolis, Mount Pleasant, and Harrisburg. The current tipping fee is $39.89 per ton. If we renew this franchise agreement, Republic will eliminate the 2012, or January of 2012 CPI price adjustment, which is about 3%, which would bring the tipping fee down to $38.73. And now please note that that includes a $2 state tax that's with that. Republic will also reduce the tipping fee another 2% beginning January 1, 2013, which would make the tipping fee $37.96 per ton. The unincorporated, just as a note, the unincorporated portions of Cabarrus County were responsible for about 11,000 tons of waste going to the Speedway landfill, with Kannapolis accounts for about 17,000 tons. Just as a comparison, Mecklenburg County sent 610,000 tons to the Speedway landfill in fiscal year 2011. Another thing that Republic has offered to us is to put a cap on the CPI adjustment. They would cap the CPI, or the consumer price index would be capped at 75%. Another item that they've offered to us that we can consider would be yard trash pickup. This would be every other week opposite the weeks for recycling. This would be a new item for the residents in the unincorporated section, and Republic has offered a fee of $1 per month. We do not have to accept that at this time. We could put it on to future years because at this point I don't think a survey's been done to see if residents truly want that or need that service at this time, but they've left that out there as an option for future years that we can exercise. Just a note on our current franchise agreement that there's a provision in which Republic supplies us with rent-free roll-offs at our C&D landfill, in which residents can bring their household trash. They've also allow us, or they do not charge any tipping fees, so when we take this trash dump to the Speedway, we do not pay anything for disposal. This is a great option for our residents. It provides a second option if you don't want to subscribe to Republic. You could bring it up to the landfill. We charge a nominal fee. In fact, based on the amount of trash you bring up and recyclables, quite often, most customers do not pay anything. So that is a fantastic option and service that we get that I'm not sure that we could get from somebody else at this time. Last year, we sent 1,100 tons of household trash to the Speedway landfill. And based on the current tipping fees that we're being charged, that would be a savings of about $44,000 or a cost avoidance of $44,000. The other thing with putting this out to bid is just the fact that you've got the disposal and the collection on the same franchise agreement. If we put this out to bid, we'd have to have a separate collection RFP and a separate disposal RFP, because like I said, the City of Kannapolis, Harrisburg, and Mount Pleasant are also on this in terms of disposal. So just looking at this proposal in a nutshell, the residential trash and recycling savings would be about $1.77 a month, which would be about $318,000 countywide per year over the course of the 5-year contract. Like I said, the waiving of tip fees from the residential trash brought to the county landfill is about $44,000 a year. Residential recycling return, that would be the money that we receive from Sunoco Recycling Facility down in Charlotte. That would be, at this point, $17,000 per year. Expecting that to grow greatly when we go to expanded curbside collection. With the City of Kannapolis, for their tipping fee reduction, it would save the city $32,000, about $33,000. Couple other notes that Republic also provides us with cardboard dumpsters that we put at the Kannapolis Recycling Convenience Center for cardboard. There's five of those. They do not charge us any rental, and they pick them up no charge. And they also pick up recyclables at all of our county buildings for no fee. So with that, that's a summary of our discussions that we've had with Republic, and we're recommending that we renew this franchise agreement with Republic Services and that the attached ordinance is adopted. With that, we'll take any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? As I read it on page, I'm trying the right page, 233, it has to be any extension or amendment of any franchise has to be passed at 2 regular meetings at the Board of Commissioners. So this would be on for the first reading at our next meeting. So and then we'd have to put it on again at the next month, so we would have 2 readings. That's why it has to be done twice. Okay. Be on the consent agenda. Yeah. So questions, comments? We do have 2 other companies that we've received letters from. I had been contacted by one company, not the second one. Didn't know about it until today. Any questions, any comments from anybody?
I guess just another question, Kevin, is that because you alluded to it, just for the complexity of it, most people just see a truck appear in front of their house once a week, pick up the trash and take it away. But there's the collection side of it, and there's the disposal side of it. What landfills are in the region that are used by, obviously this one is vertically integrated. You've got the same company that's operates landfill, that provides the collection, provides other ancillary services the public may not always see that they do for us.
Right.
And I know that, the couple that come into us, I'm not sure, do they have their own landfills as well? Are they vertically integrated, or do they have to use Republic's landfill? And
with this contract, they obviously they're going to take everything to the Republic landfill or the Speedway landfill. There are other landfills in the area. There's Rowan County that has a landfill. There's a Uwharrie landfill. Anson County has a landfill. So, I mean, there are those options. But with this contract too, like I said before, we're guaranteed space if we renew at the Speedway landfill for the next 5 years. That if we don't renew, there's a possibility that they could shut us out and we'd have to go elsewhere and travel a little further. Tipping fees could be more, could be less as well, though. It's possible.
Any other comments?
Have there been, and of course, I've not received any at all, outside of initially when the recycling was started up, 5 years ago, about the recycling service itself, but have there been have you received any complaints or anything about Republic Service, or have there been any problems, any issues?
We do get various complaints. We do get complaints.
But the ones that have not been resolved or have been something that showed a huge problem or a
over
huge
the
issue?
past 6 months or so, since I've really got a little closer with this and received personal phone calls from people when I've contacted Republic, they responded within 24 hours, sometimes even sooner. Lately, when I get a customer saying that they had their stop missed or they didn't get picked up, I tell them to leave their container out at the curbside, and it does get picked up within that day. So it has been good. Like I've told Republic in the past, the one issue that they probably do need to work at is their customer service center. That's the biggest complaint I get from customers, is when they call them and they're trying to work with that. But when a resident contacts me, and I've been in turn contacting Republic, they've responded promptly.
Yeah, about the only other, the big complaint we get is they want larger containers, and that's what this is going to help us do.
That's what I was going to verify. For the recycling, they are going to go to the bigger containers
Yeah,
for
they'll go
recycling.
with the 96 gallon, which is the same as your current garbage cart, and if you go through Concord and Kannapolis, it's similar to what you're seeing there. So the program's going to be identical to those. It'll be an every other week pickup instead of weekly.
And that's what the city of Concord does now for
Yes.
recycling?
Yes.
It's every other week?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
I guess one final thing is just to point out that and if people understand, those that get their garbage picked up know this, but I guess the public to understand better, those of us that live in the city, in even one of the cities, we get curbside pickup because it's a service that's provided as part of and the difference here is that this is a franchise agreement where we're giving them rights and people have to individually pay for it.
Right,
to
it's
try
a
to- Just like
subscribe-
cable TV, just like
Right.
cable TV.
Instead of coming out of your taxes, it's a subscriber service. But
Right.
that's the other thing that, in terms of what we like with this contract, is the fact that they provide or waive the tipping fees at the landfill. So like I said, if you don't want to subscribe to it, if you feel it's too costly or whatever, you do have an option. You can bring it up to our construction and demolition landfill and bring it up. I think you can bring 5 or 6 bags. I think it's $4. But if you bring 2 bags of recyclables, you get a $4 credit. So it's basically free. So, I mean, we do get a lot of traffic up there, and we wouldn't be able to do this if we did not get if we didn't get the tipping fees waived at the Speedway. Or we'd have to charge a lot more than we do right now.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. If you'll flip over for the hard copy, 4.6, public school finance, public school salary increase. As some people predicted, the governor did veto the budget, and so we don't have any information at this point in time to be discussed till we can find out what the state's going to do with the budget. 4.7, the voting delegate to the annual conference. Commissioner Meismer, it appears that what I'd like to do is to place on the consent agenda in 2 weeks that you will be our voting delegate to the conference. So it's a really tough job, but I think you're up for the challenge. You're getting to listen to a lot of speeches for people that want to be the next incoming, or I guess it would be the incoming president for the next year, and decide their rah-rah campaigns, which one you think is the best.
And I kind of chuckle because you sit there as a delegate and you hope and pray that no nominations made from the floor. That way you can.
Okay, I think we've covered all of those items. So now if you will flip to the third page, you have the regular meeting agenda. Notice we have a couple recognitions and presentations. There's some items on the consent agenda. And then, of course, we have a couple items under new business. Are there any items under consent that anyone would like to have pulled at this point in time and put under new business? The items under new business have to stay under new business. They can't move to consent.
Number one.
Number one, you want that put in under new business?
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll move F1 and now call it G3. Is that okay? Anything else that any commissioner wants to move from consent to new business? Okay, hearing none, then at this time I would accept a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as has been amended.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion second. Any other? Jeff, okay. I have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that appears to be everything. So we would like two things. Where's Erica? Erica's not here. We've gotten a notification, which I know you guys have all had, that Erica will be leaving us at the end of this week. And I was going to wish her well, but sorry, I guess I didn't take good enough care to make sure she was here. So Erica worked very hard on the budget this year, and I think the other staff members in the finance department will say that she will be missed in the next budget process. So she will be leaving us at the end of the week. And if any of you want to get in touch with her, I would recommend it. Other than that, Wednesday is the 4th of July. So I'd like to wish all of those in attendance and all the people at home to have a very safe and happy 4th of July, and to note that the county offices are closed on Wednesday, July the 4th, in observance of the July 4th holiday. Okay. If there's nothing else to come before the commission, I would accept a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned.